Human fleet enters the war zone. The enemy's destruction is immediate. Becomes reality as Commander Lin's special forces infiltrate the massive Zarthan command vessel, Juggernaut. In a desperate act of sacrifice, they deliver a devastating biodigital virus directly to the alien computing core, crippling the enemy's coordination capabilities precisely as Earth Fleet's barrage obliterates the armor regeneration factory, shattering the Zarthan's adaptive advantage forever. The distant rumble of the orbital station's warning systems echoed through the command deck of Orbital 9. Admiral Elena Nakamura stood motionless at the panoramic viewport, her silhouette framed against the vermilion glow of Eris 3's atmosphere below. The year 2257 had brought humanity to the precipice of its most significant test since joining the Galactic Alliance 50 years prior. "Status report," Nakamura commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding across holographic displays that surrounded the bridge crew. Lieutenant Commander Reyes approached with a data tablet. "The Zarthan forces have pushed through the Alliance's third defensive line in the Vortex sector. They've overwhelmed the Centaurian and Proxima fleets. Casualties are substantial." Nakamura's expression remained impassive, though her eyes betrayed a momentary flicker of concern. The Zarthan Empire, a collective of biomechanical entities that had emerged from the Outer Rim a decade ago, had systematically dismantled every defensive strategy the Alliance had implemented. Their adaptive armor technology rendered conventional weapons increasingly ineffective with each engagement, learning and evolving from every confrontation. "And the Council's decision?" she asked, already anticipating the answer. "The emergency directive just came through," Reyes confirmed, transferring the encrypted communique to the central holotable. "Earth Fleet has been ordered to enter the Vortex sector immediately. Operation Dawn Breakthrough is authorized with full tactical discretion granted to you, Admiral." The holotable illuminated with the Galactic Council's official seal as the message decoded itself. 12 representatives from the Alliance's founding worlds appeared in miniature, their expressions grave. "Admiral Nakamura," began Counselor Taveric of New Vulcan, his aged features accentuated by the blue holographic light. "The situation in the Vortex sector has deteriorated beyond our most pessimistic projections. The Zarthan advance threatens not only our outlying colonies, but potentially core worlds within the next standard month. Earth Fleet represents our last significant reserve force, capable of altering this strategic equation." The Council's Supreme Military Advisor, General Callis, stepped forward. "Intelligence indicates the Zarthan Armada has positioned itself in what our tactical analysts have designated the Dead Zone, a region of intense electromagnetic anomalies that has historically proven treacherous for navigation. Our estimates suggest their numbers exceed Alliance forces by at least 2 to 1. Nakamura absorbed this information with practiced stoicism. Earth Fleet was humanity's crowning achievement. 120 warships equipped with the latest innovations from humanity's research collectives. Yet they remained untested against the Zarthan threat. "The Council recognizes the significant risk we are asking Earth Fleet to undertake," continued Tavaric. "However, humanity has consistently demonstrated resourcefulness that other member species find unpredictable. It is precisely this quality that may prove decisive in this conflict." The unspoken subtext was clear. Despite decades as Alliance members, many still regarded humans as the upstarts of galactic society, technologically inferior, but dangerously innovative. This mission wasn't merely a strategic necessity, it was humanity's trial by fire. After the transmission ended, Nakamura turned to her senior staff, who had assembled during the Council's message. "Opinions?" Captain Hui Nguyen, commander of the dreadnought Thermopylae, spoke first. "Admiral, with respect, the Dead Zone is named thus for a reason. The electromagnetic disturbances will disrupt our targeting systems, communications, possibly even our drive cores. The Zarthan know this. They're waiting to ambush us in terrain that negates our technological advantages. I'm aware of the risks, Captain, Nakamura replied. But the Council isn't wrong about our unpredictability being an asset. The Zarthan have faced the methodical, doctrine-driven tactics of the Centaurians and the overwhelming force approach of the Proxima Legion. They haven't yet encountered Earth fleets. Flexibility. Colonel Mai Wang, Chief of the Engineering Corps, cleared her throat. Our analysis of previous engagements suggests the Zarthan adaptive armor requires approximately 12 minutes to fully reconfigure against new weapon signatures. If we can cycle through attack patterns and energy frequencies rapidly enough, we might overwhelm their adaptation algorithms, Nakamura finished. Exactly what I was thinking, Colonel. Captain Hai frowned. A lightning strike approach? Against twice our numbers? Admiral, the risk of catastrophic losses is considerable, Nakamura acknowledged. But the alternative is watching the Alliance fall sector by sector while we maintain a defensive posture. The Zarthan aren't interested in negotiation or limited territorial gains. This is existential. Captain, the tension between them was palpable. Hui was old-school military, methodical, cautious, preferring overwhelming force and secure supply lines. Nakamura's reputation for bold, unconventional strategies had earned her both admirers and critics within Fleet Command. I need your full support on this, Captain, Nakamura said quietly. Dissension in the command structure is a luxury we cannot afford. After a moment's hesitation, Hui nodded stiffly. You'll have it, Admiral. I maintain my reservations, but I'll execute your orders without question. That's all I ask. Nakamura turned to address the entire senior staff. We depart in 6 hours. I want all ships at maximum combat readiness, weapon systems recalibrated for rapid cycling, and engineering teams prepared for field repairs under combat conditions. This won't be a conventional engagement. As the officers dispersed to their respective duties, Nakamura remained at the viewport, studying the distant stars that marked the direction of the vortex sector. Somewhere in that glittering expanse, the future of the Alliance and humanity's place within it hung in the balance. Are we really ready for this? Reyes asked quietly, remaining behind after the others had left. Nakamura's reflection in the transparent aluminum showed the faintest smile. No one ever is, Commander. That's what makes us human. The departure of Earth Fleet from Orbital 9 was a spectacle of military precision. The massive capital ships, dreadnoughts, and carriers that formed the fleet's backbone moved into formation around Nakamura's flagship, the Horizon's Edge. Squadrons of smaller craft, cruisers, destroyers, and frigates took up defensive screening positions as the fleet aligned for its jump to the vortex sector. On the Horizon's Edge's bridge, Nakamura issued the final command. All ships, engage jump drives. Destination, vortex sector. Grid coordinates, Alpha 7 Zeta. Godspeed. As one, the 100-plus vessels of Earth Fleet disappeared into the shimmering distortion of hyperspace, leaving only the fading energy signatures of their passage. The journey to the edge of the vortex sector took 17 hours in hyperspace. During that time, Nakamura refined her strategy with her command staff, ran simulations of various combat scenarios, and prepared contingencies for the inevitable surprises that awaited them. Earth Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the periphery of the vortex sector, immediately confronted by the swirling electromagnetic anomalies that gave the region its name. Brilliant colors, electric blue, sulfurous yellow, and violent purple, painted the void as energy discharges crackled between nebulous clouds of ionized gas. Sensors detecting significant interference, Admiral, reported the tactical officer. Long-range scans degraded by approximately 60%. As expected, Nakamura replied. Deploy scout drones in wide pattern formation. Let's get better eyes on what we're facing. The small, unmanned craft launched from their bays, accelerating into the roiling energy fields ahead. Within minutes, the first drone signals began to fail. We're losing the scouts, reported Commander Reyes. Some kind of electromagnetic pulse weapon, highly targeted. Nakamura frowned. The Zarthan know we're here. They're clearing our reconnaissance assets. She studied the tactical display, where the last transmissions from the drones had revealed fragments of information. Energy signatures consistent with Zarthan vessels, positioned in a multi-layered defensive formation within the dead zone. All ships, initiate electromagnetic hardening protocols, Nakamura ordered. Adjust course to sector grid Beta 9 Epsilon, maximum combat speed. Captain Hai's voice came over the comm. Admiral, that course takes us directly through the heaviest concentration of electromagnetic disturbances. Precisely. Captain, the Zarthan will expect us to seek the path of least resistance. We're going to do the opposite. As Earth Fleet adjusted course, plunging deeper into the chaotic energy storms of the vortex, the first wave of Zarthan countermeasures became apparent. Hidden emitter satellites activated, intensifying the natural electromagnetic turbulence into weaponized fields that crashed against the human vessel's shields. Shield efficiency dropping across the fleet, reported Colonel Wong from engineering. The Zarthan have seeded the approach with harmonic disruptors. They're specifically targeting our shield resonance frequencies. Nakamura watched as status indicators for multiple ships shifted from green to yellow. Can we adapt? We're implementing randomized shield modulation, but it's draining additional power. Wong replied. We've lost 20% effectiveness fleet-wide. On the tactical display, 2 frigates at the fleet's perimeter reported critical systems failures as their shields collapsed, leaving them vulnerable to the electromagnetic storms. Dispatch rescue shuttles and have the cruiser Defiant take those frigates under tow. Nakamura ordered. Maintain formation and speed. The losses were anticipated, but still painful. As Earth Fleet pushed deeper into the vortex, more ships reported systems damage from the increasingly intense electromagnetic fields. Engineers worked frantically to maintain essential systems, but Nakamura knew they were paying a steep price for her chosen approach. Admiral, Captain Hai's voice carried barely concealed frustration. We've lost 7 ships to environmental effects alone. At this rate, we'll emerge from the worst of it in approximately 12 minutes. Captain, Nakamura interrupted. The Zarthan are expecting us to be significantly degraded by their traps. They're right, but they're also expecting us to retreat or circumnavigate. We won't. The minutes that followed tested the limits of Earth Fleet's technological resilience. Power fluctuations cascaded through ship systems. Navigation arrays failed and were hastily recalibrated. Communication became intermittent, forcing reliance on laser-tight beams that could penetrate the electromagnetic interference. Just when it seemed Nakamura's gamble might cost them too dearly, the fleet burst through the densest region of the energy storm into a relative calm, the eye of the electromagnetic hurricane known as the dead zone. All ships, status report, Nakamura commanded. The reports filtered in slowly as communication stabilized. 9 vessels had been lost or disabled, with another 14 reporting significant damage. Not catastrophic, but concerning. Admiral, the sensor officer called urgently. Multiple contacts ahead. Zarthan signatures confirmed. The tactical display filled with red markers as the enemy fleet came into sensor range. The intelligence had been accurate. The Zarthan force outnumbered them at least 2-1, arrayed in their characteristic spiral formation that allowed for mutual defense and overlapping fields of fire. They're launching fighter squadrons, reported Commander Reyes. Estimated time to engagement, 4 minutes. Nakamura studied the display, noting the Zarthan fleet's positioning. Something didn't align with their usual tactics. They're too concentrated, she murmured. The Zarthan typically maintain greater dispersal to maximize their adaptive advantage. She tapped a section of the display. And their capital ships are clustered around this region. There's something here they're protecting. A trap? Suggested Hui over the comm. Or an asset, Nakamura countered. Either way, it warrants investigation. She straightened. Decision made. All ships, Combat Formation Epsilon. Carriers to rear positions. Launch all fighter squadrons. Dreadnoughts and cruisers form the vanguard. We're implementing lightning strike protocols. A ripple of activity spread through the fleet as vessels adjusted positions. Fighters poured from carrier bays, forming into attack wings. The larger capital ships moved to the front, their massive weapon systems powering up. Lightning strike protocols? Captain High questioned. Admiral, that's never been field-tested against the Zarthan. Which is precisely why it might work. Captain, Nakamura replied. The Zarthan adapt through exposure. Their armor and countermeasures evolve in response to repeated applications of the same attack pattern or weapon signature. Lightning Strike denies them that opportunity. The protocol was Nakamura's own creation, a complex rotation of weapons, frequencies, and attack vectors designed to prevent the enemy from adapting to any single threat. In simulation, it had shown promise, but as High noted, it remained untested in actual combat against the Zarthan. All ships, prepare for Lightning Strike implementation, Nakamura commanded. Phase 1 initiates on my mark. Mark. Earth fleet surged forward as one. The vanguard ships unleashing a barrage of railgun fire. Hypervelocity projectiles accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The projectiles crossed the void in seconds, impacting the forward elements of the Zarthan formation before their adaptive armor could fully engage. Several smaller Zarthan vessels shattered under the initial onslaught, their biomechanical components dispersing in silent explosions. But the response was immediate. The surviving ship's armor visibly shifted, developing a crystalline structure that would disperse the energy of future railgun impacts. Phase 2, execute, Nakamura ordered. The fleet's weapon systems reconfigured, shifting from kinetic to energy-based attacks. Particle beams lanced out, striking the Zarthan vessels where their armor had reconfigured against kinetic weapons, leaving them temporarily vulnerable to this new threat. More enemy ships succumbed, but again, the surviving vessels adapted, their armor flowing like quicksilver to form radiation-absorbing structures. Phase 3! Now, the human fleet deployed swarms of short-range antimatter torpedoes, their delivery vectors randomized to prevent prediction. The Zarthan point defense systems, still optimized for energy weapons, failed to intercept many of the warheads. Explosions blossomed across the enemy formation as matter and antimatter annihilated one another in brilliant flashes. For the first time in the conflict, the Zarthan appeared to hesitate, their normally coordinated movements becoming erratic as they struggled to adapt to the rapidly shifting attack patterns. "It's working," murmured Commander Reyes, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. "For now," Nakamura cautioned, "maintain the cycle. We need to press the advantage while—" "Admiral," interrupted the sensor officer. "New reading from the center of the Zarthan formation. Massive energy signature building. It's some kind of plasma wave weapon." The tactical display showed an ominous energy buildup at the heart of the enemy fleet. Before Nakamura could issue new orders, the Zarthan weapon discharged, not as a directed beam, but as an expanding spherical wave of superheated plasma that rushed outward in all directions. "Evasive maneuvers!" Nakamura shouted. "All ships, maximum shield power to forward arcs." The plasma wave struck Earth fleet with devastating force. Shields flared brilliant blue as they strained against the onslaught of energy. Some held, others failed catastrophically, leaving their ships exposed to the destructive plasma that melted through hull plating and destroyed sensitive systems. "Damage reports coming in," Reyes called over the cacophony of alert signals. "We've lost the Defiant and Intrepid. The Thermopylae is reporting critical damage to their port section." Nakamura gripped the command rail as her own flagship shuddered under the plasma wave's assault. Status of the Zarthan fleet. They're regrouping. The plasma discharge appears to have temporarily drained their main energy reserves. They're vulnerable, but not for long. This was the critical moment, when conventional doctrine would call for retreat and consolidation after such a blow. But Nakamura saw the opportunity hidden within the crisis. "All functional ships, push forward," she ordered. "Maintain lightning strike protocols. We need to break through their defensive screen now, while they're recovering." "Admiral," Captain Hai protested, "we've lost nearly 20% of our effective combat strength. The prudent course would be exactly what they expect." "Captain," Nakamura cut in, "the Zarthan are counting on us to retreat after that display of force. Their tactics rely on intimidation as much as actual combat effectiveness. We push forward, despite the losses." Earth fleet surged ahead, continuing the lightning strike protocol's methodical cycling of weapons and attack patterns. The Zarthan fleet, still recovering from the massive energy expenditure of their plasma weapon, struggled to mount an effective defense against the sustained human assault. As Earth fleet penetrated deeper into the enemy formation, the sensor officer made a critical discovery. "Admiral, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from that installation the Zarthan capital ships are defending. The pattern matches what we know of their armor regeneration technology." Nakamura's eyes narrowed as she studied the readings. "An armor regeneration factory? Here in the dead zone?" The implications were immediately clear. The Zarthan adaptive armor, their primary technological advantage, required enormous resources to maintain and regenerate. Intelligence had long theorized the existence of mobile factories that served their fleets, but none had ever been confirmed. "That's why they're making such a determined stand," Nakamura realized. Without that factory, their armor would eventually degrade beyond self-repair capability. She turned to Commander Reyes. "We've found our primary target." "The factory appears heavily shielded," Reyes noted. "Conventional weapons may not penetrate its defenses." Nakamura considered their options. "Colonel Wong, what's the status of our electromagnetic pulse warheads?" "Fully operational, Admiral," replied the engineering chief. "But they'd need to be delivered with precision. The factory's shields will disperse a distant detonation. Then, we'll need to get close." Nakamura opened a fleet-wide channel. "All ships. This is Admiral Nakamura. We've identified a critical Zarthan infrastructure target, an armor regeneration factory, at the heart of their formation. This represents a strategic opportunity that justifies our losses thus far." She paused, knowing her next orders would be controversial. "I'm authorizing Operation Thunder Spear. Task Force Alpha will continue lightning strike protocols to maintain pressure on the main Zarthan fleet. Task Force Beta, consisting of our fastest cruisers and destroyers, will execute a penetration run to deliver EMP warheads directly to the factory." The channel filled with acknowledgments, some hesitant, others determined. Captain Hai's voice was notably absent. "Captain Hui," Nakamura addressed him directly, "your Thermopylae has sustained damage, but your weapon systems remain operational. I need you to provide covering fire for Task Force Beta." There was a moment of silence before Hai responded. "Understood, Admiral. The Thermopylae will not fail you." Something had changed in his tone, the earlier resistance replaced by grim resolve. Nakamura allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before focusing on the battle ahead. As Earth fleet separated into its task forces, the Zarthan response intensified. Their ships moved to intercept the human vessels attempting to reach the factory, unleashing a barrage of their own exotic weaponry, molecular disruptors, graviton beams, and swarms of self-guiding projectiles that pursued targets with unnerving persistence. Task Force Alpha engaged the bulk of the Zarthan fleet, continuing the lightning strike protocol's systematic cycling of weapons and tactics. The enemy's adaptive capabilities were being stretched to their limits, forced to respond to too many different threats simultaneously. Meanwhile, Task Force Beta initiated its high-speed run toward the factory, its ships pushing their engines beyond safety parameters to achieve the velocity needed to punch through the Zarthan defensive screen. "Enemy reinforcements detected," reported the tactical officer. "A Zarthan Dreadnought-class vessel is emerging from the electromagnetic interference zone. Configuration unknown. It doesn't match any recorded Zarthan capital ship. The tactical display updated to show a massive vessel materializing from behind a dense, electromagnetic cloud, nearly twice the size of standard Zarthan dreadnoughts. Its hull bristled with weapon emplacements and what appeared to be specialized communications arrays. Designation: Juggernaut, Nakamura decided. Likely a command vessel coordinating their defensive operations. The Juggernaut immediately began influencing the battle, its presence seemingly enhancing the coordination of nearby Zarthan ships. Their previously scattered responses became more cohesive, forming layered defenses that threatened to halt Task Force Beta's advance. "Admiral," Colonel Wong reported urgently, "we're detecting targeted cyber attack attempts against our fleet systems. The signals are originating from the Juggernaut. They're trying to penetrate our firewall protocols." Nakamura frowned. The Zarthan have never demonstrated that level of electronic warfare capability before. "This isn't their standard approach," Wong confirmed. "The attack patterns are evolving in real time, probing for weaknesses. It's as if their systems are learning from each interaction." "Biological computing," Nakamura murmured. "Intelligence suggested they might be developing it. But this is the first confirmation." She turned to the communications officer. "Warn all ships about the electronic warfare threat. Implement isolation protocols for critical systems." Despite these countermeasures, several human vessels reported systems intrusions. Navigation computers failed. Weapon targeting systems went offline. And in 2 catastrophic instances, reactor containment protocols were compromised, leading to devastating internal explosions. Task Force Beta's advance faltered as they dealt with these new electronic attacks, while still facing conventional fire from the Zarthan defensive screen. The armor regeneration factory remained protected, its shield generators operating at full capacity. "We're losing the initiative," Commander Reyes observed grimly. "Between the Juggernaut's coordination and these cyber attacks, Task Force Beta can't reach the factory." Nakamura studied the tactical situation, searching for a solution. The appearance of the Juggernaut had changed the dynamics of the battle, introducing a level of coordination and technological sophistication that threatened to overwhelm Earth Fleet's advantages. "If we can't reach the factory, we eliminate the coordination element," she decided. "The Juggernaut is the key. Without its command and control capabilities, the Zarthan defense becomes manageable again." "The Juggernaut is heavily shielded and surrounded by escort vessels," Reyes pointed out. "A conventional assault would be costly, possibly prohibitive. Then we don't use conventional methods." Nakamura opened a secure channel. "Special Operations Group, this is Admiral Nakamura. Report readiness status." "SOG standing by, Admiral," came the immediate response from Commander Lin, leader of Earth Fleet's elite Special Forces unit. "We've been monitoring the situation. I have a priority mission for your team," Nakamura said. "We need to neutralize the Zarthan command vessel's coordination capabilities. A direct assault isn't feasible, but a small team might penetrate their defenses." There was a momentary pause before Lin responded. "We've been analyzing the Juggernaut's emission patterns, Admiral. There appears to be a vulnerability in their shield configuration, a resonance fluctuation that occurs when they're actively coordinating large-scale operations." "Can you exploit it?" "With the right approach vector and timing, yes. We'll need a diversion to maximize our chances." Nakamura considered the resources still available to her. "You'll have it, Commander. Prepare your team for immediate deployment. Operation designation: Lightning Spear." As Special Operations Group prepared for their high-risk mission, Nakamura reorganized the fleet's efforts. Task Force Alpha would intensify its assault on the main Zarthan fleet, while elements of Task Force Beta would create a specific diversion to mask SOG's approach to the Juggernaut. "Captain Hai," Nakamura addressed the Thermopylae's commander, "I need your ship to lead the diversion effort. Your damage profile makes you appear more vulnerable than you are. The Zarthan may prioritize you as a target if you present yourself aggressively." You're asking me to play wounded prey, Hai responded, a note of understanding in his voice. Draw their attention while SOG makes their move. Precisely, Captain. Can the Thermopylae handle it? We've rerouted power and sealed off the damaged sections. We can give you the diversion you need, Admiral. Nakamura nodded, satisfied. Begin on my mark. All participating ships, synchronize timing protocols. The coordinated assault began with a renewed barrage from Task Force Alpha, a maximum effort designed to stress the Zarthan's adaptive systems. Simultaneously, Captain Hai's Thermopylae led a small group of vessels in what appeared to be a desperate charge toward the Juggernaut. Their engines burning hot and their weapons firing in deliberately erratic patterns to simulate damage-compromised systems. The Zarthan response was predictable. Their escorting vessels moved to intercept the perceived easy targets, weapons charging. The Juggernaut itself adjusted position, extending its coordination field to enhance the interceptor's capabilities. In that critical moment, as the Zarthan command vessel's shield resonance fluctuated to accommodate the expanded coordination effort, Special Operations Group launched from their carrier. 3 stealth insertion craft, their hulls treated with energy-absorbing materials that rendered them nearly invisible to conventional sensors, accelerated toward the momentary weakness in the Juggernaut's defenses. SOG craft away, reported Commander Reyes. Zarthan sensors show no indication of detection. Nakamura watched the tactical display with intense focus as the tiny craft approached the massive enemy vessel. Everything hinged on this gambit. If SOG could disable the Juggernaut's coordination capabilities, the tide of battle would shift decisively. The insertion craft reached the Juggernaut's shield perimeter. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed they might be detected as energy readings spiked around the contact points. Then, the readings stabilized as the craft slipped through the momentary resonance gap, attaching themselves to the Zarthan vessel's outer hull. Penetration successful, came Commander Lin's terse report. Initiating boarding sequence. While the Special Forces team began their infiltration of the Juggernaut, the battle around them intensified. Captain Hu's diversionary force endured punishing fire from the Zarthan interceptors, their shields failing under the sustained assault. The Thermopylae itself took multiple direct hits, losing weapon systems and suffering hull breaches across multiple decks. We can't maintain this position much longer, Admiral, Hui reported, his transmission punctuated by the sound of emergency alarms. The Zarthan are pressing their advantage. Hold position as long as possible, Captain, Nakamura urged. SOG needs more time. Inside the Juggernaut, Commander Lin's team fought their way through the biomechanical corridors of the alien vessel. The internal environment was hostile to human life. Atmospheric composition toxic, gravity fluctuating, and surfaces coated with corrosive compounds that degraded standard equipment on contact. Protected by their specialized environmental suits, the team pressed deeper into the vessel, following energy signatures that indicated the location of the command and control center. They encountered resistance from Zarthan security constructs, semi-autonomous defense mechanisms that combined mechanical efficiency with biological adaptability. Progress update, Nakamura requested after 15 tense minutes. Approaching what appears to be the central coordination hub, Lin responded, her transmission fragmented by interference. Resistance is significant. We've lost Zhang and Okafor. The rest of us are proceeding. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving Nakamura uncertain of SOG's status. On the tactical display, the battle continued to deteriorate. Captain Hai's diversionary force had been reduced to the Thermopylae and a single destroyer, both suffering critical damage. Task Force Alpha was holding its own against the main Zarthan fleet, but couldn't maintain the pressure indefinitely. Admiral, Colonel Wong reported, the Zarthan cyber attacks are intensifying. Our countermeasures are becoming less effective as their systems learn from each interaction. The situation was approaching a tipping point. Without some change in the battle dynamics, Earth fleet would soon be forced to withdraw, assuming they could still extract themselves from the engagement. Just as Nakamura prepared to order a strategic repositioning, the tactical display showed a significant energy fluctuation emanating from the Juggernaut. The massive vessel's external lighting systems flickered, and its weapons fire became erratic. "ESOG has reached the target," Nakamura realized. "They're disrupting the command systems." The effect rippled through the Zarthan fleet. Ships that had been operating in perfect coordination suddenly shifted to independent action, their movements becoming disjointed and their tactical responses degrading in effectiveness. "All ships. This is Admiral Nakamura. SOG has successfully compromised the enemy command vessel. Task Force Beta. Resume your approach to the armor regeneration factory. Task Force Alpha. Press your advantage against the disorganized elements of the main fleet." Earth Fleet responded with renewed vigor, exploiting the Zarthan's momentary disarray. Task Force Beta, though reduced in numbers, punched through the weakened defensive screen around the factory, bringing their electromagnetic pulse warheads within optimal deployment range. "EMP warheads armed and ready," reported the weapons officer, awaiting final authorization. "Fire!" Nakamura commanded. The specialized warheads launched from multiple vessels simultaneously, their trajectories calculated to ensure maximum coverage of the factory's shield perimeter. As they detonated in sequence, the resulting electromagnetic pulses interfered destructively with the shield generators, creating cascading failures that rippled through the factory's defensive systems. For a moment, the factory's shields held, the energy pulses visibly straining against the barrier. Then, with a silent flash of released energy, the shields collapsed entirely, leaving the vital installation exposed. "All ships with operational weapons, target the factory's power core," Nakamura ordered. "Fire at will." A concentrated barrage of railgun slugs, energy beams, and conventional explosives converged on the now vulnerable factory. The structure's outer layers shattered under the assault, exposing the central mechanisms that generated and maintained the Zarthan's adaptive armor. Within the Juggernaut, Commander Lin's team had reached a critical juncture. The alien vessel's biological computing core, a massive, pulsating structure that melded organic neural tissue with crystalline computational matrices, lay before them, partially disabled by their initial sabotage efforts. "Primary objective compromised," Lin reported, her transmission clearer now that the Juggernaut's jamming capabilities had been disrupted. "But the system is attempting to reroute and self-repair. We need to deliver the package directly to the core." The package was a specialized virus, both digital and biological in nature, designed to corrupt the Zarthan's hybrid systems permanently. Delivering it meant physical contact with the core, a potentially suicidal action given the energy discharges surrounding the alien technology. "Understood, Commander," Nakamura acknowledged. "Do what you must." The tactical display showed the remaining members of Lin's team converging on the Juggernaut's core, while the battle raged around the crippled command vessel. Meanwhile, the assault on the armor regeneration factory had reached a critical stage, with multiple secondary explosions, indicating catastrophic internal damage. "Factory power core destabilizing," reported the sensor officer. "Energy readings suggest imminent overload." Nakamura issued an immediate alert. "All ships, clear the vicinity of the factory. Prepare for shockwave." The human vessels nearest the factory accelerated away, their engines straining at maximum output. Not all would make it to safe distance in time. Within the Juggernaut, Commander Lin made her decision, with two of her team providing covering fire against the vessel's internal defense mechanisms. She approached the pulsating core, the biological virus clutched in her armored hand. "Package delivery imminent," she transmitted. "Recommend all ships maintain maximum distance from the Juggernaut following detonation." Before Nakamura could respond, the feed from Lin's team cut out completely. Seconds later, the Juggernaut systems began to fail catastrophically. Energy surges raced across its hull, weapons platforms deactivated, and propulsion systems shut down. Almost simultaneously, The armor regeneration factory reached critical overload. The structure's central power core collapsed in upon itself, before exploding outward in a blinding flash of released energy. The shockwave expanded in all directions, catching several human vessels that hadn't reached safe distance, and numerous Zarthan ships still in defensive positions around the installation. "Brace for impact," Nakamura called as the energy wave approached the horizon's edge. The flagship shuddered violently as the shockwave struck, shields flaring to their limits before partially collapsing. Similar reports came in from across the fleet. Systems failures, hull breaches, power fluctuations, but they had survived. The Zarthan fleet had not fared as well. Without the coordination provided by the Juggernaut, and with their armor regeneration capability destroyed, they found themselves in an unprecedented situation, vulnerable and disorganized. The effect on their adaptive armor was immediate and dramatic. Vessels that took damage could no longer regenerate their protective systems effectively. Armor that had previously flowed like quicksilver to counter specific threats now responded sluggishly or failed entirely. "The Zarthan fleet is breaking formation," reported Commander Reyes, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. "They're retreating." Nakamura watched in grim satisfaction as the enemy vessels began to disengage, abandoning their previously impenetrable defensive positions. Without the Juggernaut's coordination and the factory's regenerative capabilities, they had lost their two greatest advantages. "Status of Captain Hai's ship?" Nakamura asked. "The Thermopylae is severely damaged but intact," Reyes responded. "They're reporting heavy casualties and multiple system failures, but their reactor is stable." "And Commander Lin's team?" Reyes hesitated. "No communication since the Juggernaut systems collapsed. Admiral, given the energy readings we detected during the ship's failure, survival seems unlikely." Nakamura absorbed this news with a pang of regret. SOG had accomplished their mission, but at the ultimate cost. "All ships, secure from combat operations," she ordered. "Begin damage assessment and casualty reports. Dispatched medical frigates to assist vessels with critical injuries." As the immediate crisis passed, the enormity of what they had accomplished began to sink in. Earth fleet had faced overwhelming odds against an enemy that had decimated every other alliance force it had encountered, and had emerged victorious. "Admiral," Captain Hai's voice came over the comm, strained but resolute. "Permission to offer my apologies." "For what, Captain?" "For doubting your strategy. The lightning strike approach. It was the right call. Conventional tactics would have failed against their adaptability." Nakamura allowed herself a small smile. "Apology accepted, Captain. Your diversionary action was executed perfectly. We couldn't have reached the Juggernaut without it." As Earth fleet regrouped, tending to their wounded and repairing what damage they could, the dead zone began to clear. The electromagnetic storms that had made the region so treacherous seemed to diminish in intensity, as though the very fabric of space was settling after the violent conflict that had transpired. "Interesting," noted Colonel Wong, studying the sensor readings. "The Zarthan technology appears to have been amplifying the natural electromagnetic disturbances in this region, possibly to provide additional cover for their factory." Nakamura nodded. "Which means we can establish a proper defensive perimeter now. The vortex sector just became significantly more secure." In the hours that followed, Earth fleet consolidated its position, establishing sensor networks and communication relays throughout the region that had once been the dreaded dead zone. The few remaining Zarthan vessels had retreated beyond detection range, abandoning the strategic territory they had previously dominated. As the immediate crisis passed, Nakamura found a quiet moment to reflect on the cost of their victory. Earth fleet had lost 27 ships outright, with another 35 suffering damage that would require extensive repairs. The casualty lists were still being compiled, but the numbers would be substantial. Yet the strategic gains were undeniable. The destruction of the armor regeneration factory represented a crippling blow to Zarthan operations throughout the sector. Intelligence analysis of debris from the factory and the damaged juggernaut would yield invaluable insights into their technology and potential vulnerabilities. Most significantly, humanity had proven itself on the galactic stage. The Alliance members who had regarded humans as technological inferiors would now have to reassess their assumptions. Earth fleet had accomplished what the combined forces of more advanced civilizations had failed to achieve. Admiral, Commander Reyes approached, breaking into her thoughts. "We're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council." Nakamura straightened her uniform jacket. "Put it through to my ready room." The holographic projector activated as she entered the private chamber adjacent to the bridge, revealing the 12 representatives of the Alliance's founding worlds. Their expressions, across various alien physiologies, conveyed a mixture of relief and astonishment. "Admiral Nakamura," began Counselor Tavaric, "we have received preliminary reports of your engagement in the Vortex sector. The Council wishes to express its profound appreciation for Earth Fleet's accomplishment." General Callis stepped forward. "Our tactical analysts are still processing the data, but it appears you've dealt the Zarthan their first significant defeat since they emerged from the Outer Rim. The destruction of their armor regeneration capability represents a strategic turning point in this conflict. My fleet performed admirably, Counselors," Nakamura responded formally. "But our losses were considerable. We'll require reinforcement and resupply to maintain our position in the sector." "You shall have it," promised Tavaric. "The Council has unanimously approved priority status for Earth Fleet's requisitions. Additionally, elements of the Centaurian and Proxima fleets are being redirected to support your defensive perimeter." "There is another matter," added Counselor Jean of the Arcturus Collective, their crystalline form refracting the holographic light. "The Council is revising certain aspects of Alliance military doctrine based on your tactical innovations. Your lightning strike protocol has proven remarkably effective against the Zarthan adaptive systems." The unspoken admission that humanity's approach had succeeded where the more technologically advanced species had failed hung in the air between them. "The Alliance stands stronger when it embraces the unique contributions of all its members," Nakamura offered diplomatically. "Indeed," agreed Tavaric. "A formal commendation will be entered into the permanent records of the Council, acknowledging Earth Fleet's service to the Alliance." After the transmission ended, Nakamura returned to the bridge, where the crew worked diligently to coordinate the fleet's recovery operations. Commander Reyes approached with a data tablet. "Final casualty reports. Admiral," he said solemnly. 9,742 confirmed. Another 2,000 injured, many critically." Nakamura accepted the tablet, the weight of those numbers settling heavily on her shoulders. "Ensure that formal letters are prepared for the families of the fallen, not the standard templates. Each letter should acknowledge the specific contribution of their loved one to our victory." "Of course, Admiral." She moved to the viewport, gazing out at the scattered elements of Earth Fleet against the backdrop of the now calming Vortex sector. Ships moved in coordinated patterns, establishing the defensive grid that would secure this strategic region for the Alliance. "Sensor contact," called the tactical officer suddenly. "Small craft emerging from the debris field surrounding the Juggernaut's last position." Nakamura turned sharply. "Identification?" "Unclear, Admiral. It's using a scrambled transponder signal, but the energy signature has human components." Hope flared briefly. "On screen!" The main view screen shifted to show a small, battered craft maneuvering through the debris field. Its hull was scorched and partially melted, bearing the unmistakable signs of exposure to extreme energy discharges. "Open a channel," Nakamura ordered. After several attempts, a fragmented transmission came through. "Horizon's Edge. This is Commander Lin. Request immediate extraction. Have 2 survivors. Systems failing." "Lock onto their position," Nakamura commanded. Dispatch rescue shuttles immediately. As the rescue operation launched, Nakamura allowed herself a moment of relief. Commander Lin's survival against all odds seemed a fitting capstone to their unlikely victory. Yet, even as Earth Fleet consolidated its triumph, a final scene played out, unnoticed, amid the vast debris field surrounding the ruined juggernaut. A small, Zarthan craft, barely larger than an escape pod, disengaged from the shadowed side of the destroyed command vessel. Its systems operated in passive mode, making it virtually invisible to standard sensors. Within its biomechanical hull, a fragment of the juggernaut's computing core pulsed with dim but persistent energy, a sliver of the alien intelligence that had coordinated the Zarthan defense. Attached to this remnant was a data module containing complete scans of the human virus that had nearly destroyed it, along with preliminary adaptations already being formulated by the surviving biological components. The tiny vessel oriented itself toward deep space, its propulsion system activating with minimal energy signature. Slowly, deliberately, it began its journey away from the battle site, carrying with it both the record of defeat and the seeds of potential future retribution. In the command center established on the former Zarthan factory's location, now converted to an Alliance outpost, Admiral Nakamura studied the strategic projections for the sector. With the dead zone secured and the Zarthan fleet in disarray, the immediate crisis had passed. But experience had taught her that victory was rarely absolute, particularly against an enemy as adaptable as the Zarthan. "Something troubling you, Admiral?" asked Captain Hai, who had joined her strategic planning session, despite still recovering from injuries sustained during the battle. Nakamura gestured to the sector map. "We've won a significant victory, Captain. But the Zarthan arose from nowhere once before. I can't help wondering what they might learn from this defeat." Hai nodded thoughtfully. "Then we'll need to be ready when they return. And thanks to you, the Alliance now understands that adaptation works both ways." As Earth Fleet settled into its new role as the vanguard of Alliance defense in the sector, Nakamura found herself contemplating the future. The Zarthan had been defeated, but not destroyed. The war would continue, evolving just as the enemy did. But humanity had proven its worth as an Alliance member, demonstrating that innovation and flexibility could overcome even the most daunting technological advantages. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them united. Human ingenuity joined with the diverse strengths of their galactic partners. And in that unity, Nakamura found reason for cautious optimism. Far beyond the newly established sensor perimeter, the small Zarthan craft continued its silent journey, carrying with it both the memory of defeat and the promise of evolution yet to come.